Do you want to make sure that you lead your worship team well? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 characteristics of an effective worship team leader. If you do these 3 things, you'll lead your team well. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from Leading Worship Well. This is the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. Before we get into things, if you want to lead your team well, the best place to do that is your worship team rehearsal. And I've got you covered if you want to have an amazing worship team rehearsal. I put together a worship team rehearsal blueprint. There's a link to it down in the description below. In it, I'll share with you the 5-piece system that you can implement directly into your worship ministry to have the best worship rehearsal you've ever had that leads your team well relationally, spiritually, and musically. So check that out in the description below. But today we're specifically talking about how to be an effective worship team leader. There are 3 characteristics that you need to have if you want to be an effective worship team leader. Before we get into those things, though, I want to hear, how would you define an effective worship team leader? What are some of the things that they do? Maybe you can speak from experience. Maybe you feel like you do some things in your own worship ministry that are effective. Or maybe you have experienced being a part of a team that had an effective leader in the past. So whatever those characteristics are, let us know a few of them down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in a second. Thanks so much for leaving your answer down below. Let's get into these 3 characteristics of an effective worship team leader. The first is this, so important. They are prepared. They are prepared. They come with a plan. And not only do they have a plan, but they're probably prepared beforehand, and they make sure that the team is prepared beforehand as well. This is one of the biggest frustrations in worship team members, is when the leader doesn't have a plan, when the leader doesn't know what they're doing. And what's that look like so that you can avoid it? Number 1, have your songs picked out in advance, like well in advance, so that you give your team time to prepare how to play them. I hear this frustration all the time. I made a video not too long ago about why people leave worship teams. I'll link it down in the description below. But I've just heard through the comments there just like so many reasons why people are frustrated really with their worship team leaders. And one of them is that they just aren't prepared. They don't get them the songs until the night before, and then they expect them to show up and be able to play them. They show up to rehearsal and they don't have a plan. They don't know the songs themselves. They don't know like how to play the songs, so they're trying to figure them out during worship rehearsals. Don't be that guy or that girl. Be prepared. If you are the leader, the people of your team are only going to live up to the expectation that you model for them. So if you aren't prepared, if you don't come to rehearsal prepared or over-prepared, you should really be over-prepared as a worship team leader. Your worship team will never be either. So be prepared. Have a plan for a rehearsal. That's why I put together the worship rehearsal blueprint, linked down in the description below. Pick out the songs in advance. Get your team what they need. If you're scheduling a special event, do it far in advance. Be prepared and you will be effective. That's like literally 90% of being a worship team leader is just being prepared. The second thing you need to do to be an effective worship team leader is to be relational. Even though I said being prepared is like 90% of being a worship team leader, probably the most important part is to be relational. It's to have a relationship with the people on your team where you aren't just treating them like they're employees and you're the boss and they're just there to play guitar or drums or whatever. No, actually be a friend to them. Be a church member to them. Care about them. And start thinking about your worship teams less like a band and more like a small group. Think about if you had a small group, maybe you're part of a small group. What do you do with those people in your small group? You meet with them regularly. Maybe you probably communicate with them outside of just Sunday morning or whenever you need them. You get together with them outside of Sunday morning more than just when you need them, right? Like, these are ways to be relational. You should know what's going on in the lives of the people on your team. And why does that help? Why does that make you effective? Well, it builds respect and trust as a leader. If you're going to lead a team, the people need to trust and respect you. And the way you do that is you build relationships with them. You're prepared. You set a culture of excellence, and then you build relationships with them. I know that this seems like, when I say it out loud, it seems like really obvious, but I'm even thinking about how I don't do this all the time, and I need to do a better job of this. So be relational. That is, like, I made this video a couple weeks back about the easiest way to improve your worship leading, and it was to get to know the people that you're leading. The easiest way to improve your worship team leadership is to get to know the people that you're leading as well, because you'll be able to lead them better, and they'll trust you and they'll respect you. So, number 2, be relational. And finally, number 3, the third characteristic of an effective worship leader is to have vision for your church and for your ministry. Effective worship leaders don't just think about what's coming up this coming Sunday. They think about what's happening over the course of this year. What am I going to be doing over the next 6 months? Effective leaders, not just in worship ministry, but in general, have a 6-month plan. And they have a 3-year plan, and they have a 5-year plan of where they want to see their ministry grow. And there's a lot of flexibility in there in between, and things change all along the way. But if you never have a vision, you'll never get anywhere. You'll just be stuck doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So if you're a worship team leader, ask yourself the question, what are 3 things that I wish were different about my worship team, or that could be improved? It doesn't necessarily mean that anything is horribly wrong, but what could be improved? And how am I going to take a small step there in the next 6 months? How am I going to take a big step there in the next 3 years? And how am I going to get to where I want to be in the next 5 years? Think about that for you and your team, and you will have vision for your worship team. So there they were, 3 characteristics of an effective worship team leader. Number 1, you are prepared. You are prepared. You are prepared. You have what you need in advance. You resource your team appropriately. You have a plan when you show up for a rehearsal. Number 2, you are relational. You have built a relationship with the people on your team, and they trust you and respect you because of it. Number 3, you have a vision for your team. You are actually leading the people. If you don't have a vision for where things are going in the future, you aren't leading anybody anywhere. You're just, I don't know, fulfilling weekly responsibilities. That's not what a leader does. They push the needle forward and they lead their team. So that's what an effective worship leader looks like. I know this was a bit of a shorter video today, but I just felt like I wanted to share those things. So before you go, if you want to really lead your team well, the best time to do that is during your worship rehearsal. So check out the link in the description below to the free PDF I put together called The Worship Rehearsal Blueprint, where I will teach you a 5-part system that you can use in your worship rehearsals to have the best worship rehearsal you've ever had. You lead your team well, relationally, spiritually, and musically. Check it out in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Till I see you in the next video. Keep leading worship well.